When news broke the other day about these two shootings, one in El Paso and one in Dayton, I said that because of the manifesto, it's likely that we know the motivations of the guy in El Paso, and that the shooting in Dayton was probably something in line. I referred to a concept called a standalone complex, where it appears that people are acting towards a concerted effort when they're seemingly unrelated. It still kind of is that. But as I read more and as we learn more, I'm now starting to believe that the individual in Dayton, Connor Betts, was actually an accelerationist for the left. In this story from the New York Post titled, "Dayton Shooter Connor Betts May Be Antifa's First Mass Killer," I think Andy No kind of alludes to this point. I don't think he actually says accelerationist, but he talks about how this guy Connor was far left, was espousing a desire for armed conflict, was saying he wanted things now, he didn't want to have to wait for idiots, and then all of a sudden he carries out this attack. When trying to think about what his motivation could have been, I do think his social media is relevant, as is the social media of any other, mass shooter. And it looks like what was at the core of this individual's mind was socialism, opposing the rich, opposing Trump. And what we've seen is that these past few mass shootings, I won't go through the list of them, have made references to trying to get things to happen quicker. I believe it's possible. I'm not saying to what degree. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying I'm starting to think, based on the information we're seeing, this guy Connor Betts, his motivation was make it happen faster. Just make it happen faster. Let's read the story, from Andy No. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate. If you'd like to support my work, there's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. But of course, the best thing you can do, share this video, because I assure you, for one, this video will not be monetized, of course. And additionally, it will probably be deranked. I want to stress one more point too. It's not related to this video, but David Pakman recently had his channel struck manually by CNN because he was commenting on the debate. So let me just stress, they're coming for independent commentary. If you like what I do, please consider sharing this video. It's the most powerful thing we can do to bypass the restrictions YouTube puts on us and the attacks from corporate media. Let's read. Andy No writes, over the weekend, America suffered two mass shootings within hours of one another in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. These followed another mass shooting in Gilroy, California, a week earlier. The alleged perpetrators of the attacks were young lone wolf gunmen. All three carried out carnage against innocents using high-powered rifles. I believe that's not true. My understanding is that in Dayton, Ohio, he was using a handgun modified to function like a rifle with a 100-round drum or something like that. Andy writes, all told, Santino, I'm not going to read about the guy. I tried to avoid saying the names as much as possible. Okay, it is what it is. While the attacks are similar, the response from liberals and leftists has been anything but. Democratic presidential candidates Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders succinctly condemned white nationalism, the ideology espoused by the El Paso shooter, in his purported 2,300-word manifesto. However, when it comes to condemning the Dayton shooter's militant far-left views, all remain mum. Others, such as anti-police activist Sean King, even claimed the Dayton shooter targeted blacks in a hate crime, though racism doesn't appear to have been a component of his twisted worldview. While Betts, the Dayton shooter, didn't leave behind a manifesto, his extensive social media footprint provides clues as to what may have inspired him. Federal investigators announced Tuesday they are looking into his exploration of violent ideologies. We are now seeing federal investigations. Federal investigators are now considering what this may be a factor in his motivation for what he did. Betts had long expressed support for Antifa accounts, causes, and individuals. That would be the loose network of militant activists who physically attack anyone to the right of Mao in the name of anti-fascism. In particular, Betts promoted extreme hatred of American border enforcement. Quote, kill every fascist, the shooter declared in 2018 on Twitter, echoing a rallying cry of Antifa ideologues. Over the next year, his tweets became increasingly violent. Nazis deserve death and nothing else, he tweeted last October. Betts frequently flung the label Nazi at those with whom he disagreed online. So I'll stop here, and I want to comment on this point. Is it possible, I'm asking, that what we're seeing, or to what degree of probability do you think it's probable or possible, that Connor Betts was in this space we so often facetiously refer to, where the far authoritarian left call everyone a Nazi? Is it possible that Connor Betts was looking at regular people, consumerism, people at these bars and these places as contributing to a system of climate change, of wealth inequality, and of fascism. If they really do believe centrists are fascists, and they do, at what point will someone like this see everyone and think, oh my God, it's all of them? Chris Reagan made a joke video called Punch a Nazi, where a guy is in one of the scenes, as he's, it's a music video joke. The guy's in Starbucks and he turns around and all of a sudden he sees all of these people standing there with coffee, and then he says, Nazis are everywhere. Am I saying that there's an individual who genuinely believes, like, I've got to stop regular people? What I'm saying is, perhaps a delusional and crazy person in a paranoid state starts thinking the Nazis are out to get them because they keep seeing it over and over and over again. I want to avoid hard speculation, right? But I think, exploring this can be important for two reasons. For one main reason, as Andy No points out, we're not seeing media condemnation. I made 3 videos talking about what happened in El Paso. And when I first talked about the shootings, I assumed this guy was also a white nationalist. That is the framing we have in this country. That even someone like me that does my research all day and nonstop, I'm leaning towards 2 white nationalists, right? And it turns out one of them was not. I was wrong. But you can see the bias our culture has. We immediately assume that must be the case. Doesn't necessarily make sense all the time. It doesn't. But that's the bias we have. Thus, we see politicians calling out the far-right extremists. We don't see them calling out the far left. In fact, we see them doing the opposite. Calling for more. Praising the terrorists like Sean King did. And that's what's truly terrifying. So yes, while, it's hard to know what the right thing to do is, I think it's important we start breaking down what may be causing an escalation. Is this guy an example of how the left is worse than No. The point is, they're all bad. And if no one calls out the left, it's going to get worse. We know the white supremacists going around killing people are bad, of course. And everybody agrees. Every conservative and every liberal is condemning it. But when it comes to the left, we see praise from the left. We need to make sure we call this out. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes here. No rights. By December, he reached out on Twitter to the Socialist Rifle Association, an Antifa gun group, to comment about bump stocks, and SRA responded to him. Although I don't know if that matters, but in the months leading to his rampage, Betts expressed a longing for climactic confrontation. In response to an essay by The Intercept writer Mehdi Hassan titled, "Yes, let's defeat or impeach Trump, but what if he doesn't leave the White House?" the shooter wrote, "Arm, train, prepare." By June, he tweeted, "I want socialism, and I'll not wait for the idiots to finally come round understanding." Last week, he promoted posts that demonized Senator Ted Cruz and Bill Cassidy's resolution against Antifa extremism. America's historical and contemporary struggles with fringe far-right violence has provided politicians, leaders, and media with blueprints to identify and confront that form of extremism. The national unity in rejecting violent white nationalist ideologues like James Fields and Dylan Roof are emblematic of America's resolve against the far right. The unanimous rejection of the El Paso shooter's beliefs, including by Trump, once more demonstrated the nation's resolve against hard right hate. Yet when it comes to far left violent extremism, there is a gaping blind spot in the mainstream discourse, and we are less safe because of it. And beyond that, when Trump came out and said we must come together and condemn hate, bigotry, white supremacy as in one voice, etc., what happened? The New York Times published a headline, "Trump urges unity versus racism," and the left demanded they change the headline. To me, this is what's truly scary. This is scary because you may think Trump's response wasn't strong enough. Fine, but he did condemn the hate. They pushed the lie about Charlottesville, which, listen, I think Trump did a poor job after Charlottesville of talking about what happened. Totally. But to act like Trump said the Nazis were fine people is a lie. We are drowning in the lies. But I think the main problem is it comes down to media bias. Where is the condemnation of this guy, Connor Betts? Shouldn't we have someone saying something to the effect of, whether or not we truly figured out his motivation, we must consider his extreme left-wing ideologies and calls for violence and encouragement of it, and reject that in all its forms. We must condemn Antifa violence. Yet what we get instead is a mainstream media with people on the left saying, but the right is worse than Antifa. As if that matters. For people like me, sitting somewhat in the middle and not being like I am the, I bring this up often, but people are like, Tim mentions he's mixed race and all that stuff. Let me explain one more time to those who might not get it. I'm too white for these people on the left, and I'm not white enough for these people on the far right. And I say left and far right because it's the mainstream left that attacks me for looking too white. Mainstream. It's me talking with everyday activists who have been, I was on a documentary shoot, and I was told I wasn't Korean enough to truly understand the plight of minorities. Meanwhile, my family has been targeted by white supremacists. And then we can see the manifesto in El Paso talking about dirty race mixers. So where does that leave someone like me? Shocked and worried about the psychotic rhetoric coming from far-left extremists being ignored or encouraged. Because I see two bad groups. I see one group that is fringe, extremely lethal, but not happening all the time. When it does, it's insane. And we do need something to stop it. But as Andy writes, we have the mechanisms to fight this. The FBI is focused on it. The media is focused on it. Good, great. I appreciate it. But then they act like Antifa is okay. They act like people like this guy's far left psychotic ideology is okay. And then when this guy goes out and kills people, having previously alluded to accelerationism, having previously stated he is arming and training and preparing in response to anti-Trump rhetoric, where is the condemnation? It doesn't exist. And that scares me. It tells me that when things hit the fan, they are going to be okay with those who target people like me. Meanwhile, Donald Trump condemned white supremacy. And I'm not even a fan of the guy. I think he could do a better job. I'm not going to go on, the point is, why is it that I can make video after video saying things where it's like, I think Trump did a bad job on this. I think his foreign policy was bad. I think he's boorish. I think the way he speaks is bad for discourse in this country, the way he debates. And Trump supporters are like, well, I understand why you think that. And then when it comes to condemnation, I can hear it from Trump's mouth. We must condemn it as a nation. And I'm like, works for me. Great. But then they act like he's encouraging this. No, I have to be honest. As someone who grew up experiencing, being targeted, when I was younger, my family targeted by white supremacists, growing up in a mixed race area, and then all of a sudden, around Occupy Wall Street, the left starts coming after me. They start telling me that I'm too white. They tell me that my experiences don't matter. And I start getting worried about it. So I look to the leadership, and what do I see? I see a boorish man who's crude and crass, who tweets too much, who has bad foreign policy, of which I disagree with and have disagreed with since I was a teenager protesting the Iraq War. And he says, we condemn this in no uncertain terms. And I say, okay. And then the left says, but Antifa's not that bad. And then I say, oh my God, that to me is terrifying. I went on a shoot, and we were supposed to be talking about police brutality, and I was told by a Korean woman that I wasn't Korean enough to understand the plight of minorities, and I had no right to speak about it. I'm told consistently that I'm not really mixed race. Yet when it comes to the leaked Discord chats from the white supremacists, they rag on me all day and night and refuse to even listen to what I have to say for being a dirty, race-mixing global citizen with no national identity. And I've heard it from their mouths. And I have no problem calling them out. And I have no problem saying you're wrong and you're crazy and you're going to lose. And then, as Andy No accurately points out, when this guy comes out and does something like this, when Antifa goes out and attacks people, when Antifa attacked a gay child of immigrants, I believe Andy is Vietnamese, many in the media excused it. He should have known better. Antifa's not that bad. That to me is terrifying. An overwhelmingly white group of progressive, privileged, urban ivory tower elites. And I say elite in the sense like I don't believe they're actually sipping fine wines. A lot of these people live in squats. But a lot of them do. At Occupy Wall Street, there were trust fund kids. And this should be an easy You know what? It's almost pointless to even talk about this. Because I know that all of you watching me say this are sitting there going like, yep, I totally understand. We of course we think, like we're Americans. Of course we think the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists are bad. Of course we do. We always have. We were the ones who stormed Normandy to stop it. And then what happens? CNN hosts, activists show pictures of World War II and equate our soldiers who fought to end Nazism in Europe with Antifa, who beat the crap out of a gay Vietnamese journalist and put him in the hospital with a brain hemorrhage, who cracked someone over the head with a bike lock, who throws explosives, who I've personally witnessed knock down an elderly couple, rip the hats off their head and set them on fire. Are they going around with high-powered rifles? Well, they may be now, because we had the guy in Tacoma, and now we have Connor Betts. We don't know the motivation for Connor. The guy in Tacoma did leave a manifesto. Where was the widespread condemnation? It didn't exist. Sean King praised it. Oh, man. Let's read a little bit more. No rights. America's historical and contemporary struggles with fringe far-right violence has provided politicians, leaders, and media with blueprints to identify and confront that form of extremism. Oh, I read that. I'm sorry. Beyond banal condemnations of violence, politicians and leaders must work to uproot far-left militant beliefs from mainstream politics. The Dayton shooter promoted the same virulently anti-law enforcement rhetoric that too many mainstream figures on the left flirt with. And yet it was courageous police officers who finally ended his carnage when they shot and killed him outside of the Ned Pepper's bar in Dayton's entertainment district. Let me stress something too. They say Trump's rhetoric is encouraging this. Why? Because Trump has referred to thousands of people marching through Mexico from Central America with the flags of their nations as an invasion. I disagree with the rhetoric to a certain extent. I have said, look, when you have people on trains coming here because they want to come to the United States, invasion is a strong word. They're coming from various countries. They're not necessarily flying the banner of their home country until you see the photos of, yes, people were marching here holding giant banners of their home country. I believe the invasion rhetoric is hyperbolic. But Trump isn't praising mass shooters and terrorists like Sean King did. It doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't matter. You know why? The left points the finger at the right points the finger at the left. Right now, there is a tacit alliance between centrists and the right because at least we all agree the violence is bad. We disagree on policy. We have conversations about it. I sat down with Glenn Beck, and we got to a point on pro-life, pro-choice where we're just like, we're not gonna solve it. But it was with a smile and a handshake, because even though Glenn probably finds my politics psychotic and insane, I didn't throw a punch at him. I just said, I just can't get over the ethical implications of state enforcement. And I don't want to rehash the whole conversation. The point was, we disagreed on very hard moral issues that are so extreme. I've had people send me hate emails calling me every name in the book. And that's okay, because it's just words. It's them saying you're a stupid, amoral liberal. You don't understand. You're wrong. How could you? And I go, well, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, but they're words. You want to come up to my face and yell at me and tell me I'm wrong? They're just words. You want to see Sean King praise, promote, encourage? Those are not just words. You see Donald Trump say invasion and talk about the border crisis. Well, we do have a border crisis. Everyone is now getting on board and admitting it. Invasion was hyperbolic. It may contribute to an escalation of rhetoric, perhaps, but to act like he's encouraging it, which they're saying Trump inspired. Okay, let's talk about this guy. Let's talk about Sean King. Let's talk about all of the tweets published that were anti-white, all of the tweets that are published that are calling for violence, punch a Nazi, saying more, more, more. And then you get what I think may have been accelerationism. I'm going to leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you then.